Okay, let's continue looking at supply and demand. This is actually a very powerful way to think about things. And the more you understand this, the more you'll be able to do analysis of the effects of different actions. Now, when we left off, we were looking at the equilibrium price. This is the price at which everything I'm willing to make, people are willing to buy. I'm willing to make a lot more. People aren't willing to buy it. And people are willing to buy a lot more at a lower price, but I'm not willing to make it. So this is the equilibrium price. It's a very, very important concept. Well, what happens? What could make the prices change? So let's talk about that. So we talked earlier also about factors that affect the demand curve. Let's just stay with, well, let's change the topic. Let's suppose we're looking at luxury cars. Here's somebody, I'm willing to make lots of luxury cars, but if people aren't willing to make a lot, as the price goes up, people will buy less and less luxury cars. Well, what should happen if the people's incomes go up? People get raises. The general unemployment goes down. People get jobs. What happens? Well, you have to ask yourself three questions. I want you always to think about answering the questions to what happens in three steps. Right? The first step is, which curve gets affected? The second question is, which way does it go? And the third question is, what happens to the price and quantity? Those are three very, very important things to do. So the first question I'm going to say is, which curve gets affected? Incomes. Well, things that affect profits or supply, but incomes, that affects how much I want. So if my income goes up, it'll affect the demand curve. I wonder why there's no demand written here. And which way does it go? Well, it moves to the right. Don't think about up and down. Think about to the right. It goes to the right. Why? It goes to the right because at every price along here, people are willing to buy more. I got more money. I'll buy more. Clothing. I got more shoes. I want to buy more shoes. I just got a raise. So anything that affects your willingness to buy, the quality might go up. Maybe I find that eating hamburgers lowers the risk of cancer. Okay, people will buy more hamburgers. And what we get is a shift in the right of the demand curve. The demand curve goes to the right. Now, take a look at what happens to the equilibrium. It started here, and now it's up here. Okay, so we talked about first the demand curve gets affected. It moves to the right, and now I want to see what happens to price and quantity. Well, here was the original quantity. This is my new quantity, and here's my new price. Notice the price went up. Notice the quantity went up. Right? So the price goes up. I can talk about the price going up and the quantity going up as I shift from this equilibrium to that equilibrium. Anything that increases my demand curve. Now, one thing that doesn't increase the demand curve is price. People often talk about the price affecting the demand curve. It doesn't. Why? Because the price shows you already on here how much you're willing to make. It affects the demand, but not the demand curve. If the price is high, here's how much you want. If the price goes down, yeah, people buy more. But I don't redraw the curve. You will find that on an exam. Price does not affect the demand curve. Well, what happens if we find out that eating hamburgers is not good for you? Well, which curve gets affected? Not the supply curve. I'm still willing to make the hamburgers. You're still willing to eat them. I'll still make them. It affects the demand curve. First question, which way does it go? Well, at every price, people want less. So the demand curve will shift to the left. Didn't do that one. There. The demand curve will shift to the left. Now I want to say, what happens to price and quantity? Well, the price went down and the quantity goes down. Here's my original equilibrium point. Here's my new one. And you can see that the price goes down and the quantity goes down. Quality, if the price of substitute goods goes down, people will buy less of this good. If the price of hot dogs goes down to 10 cents, people will buy less hamburgers. Or if burritos goes down in price, people will buy less hamburgers because the demand curve shifts to the left. So the prices will have to drop and the quantity will go down. Well, what happens if the government decreases tax? Let's suppose we can automate things. We can automate our production of cars or something. Well, how does that affect? First, which curve gets affected? Well, that's something that could affect our profits. So that will affect our supply curve. And because our profits go down, we're willing to make more. At every price, hey, I'm willing to make more because I make more profits. My equilibrium changes. My equilibrium goes here. And now it was there, and now it goes here. What happened? The price goes down, and I sell more. The quantity goes up. So the price has gone down, and the quantity has gone up. On this axis, the quantity has gone up, and on this axis, the price has gone from here to here. The price has gone down. All right, well, what happens if we set the minimum wage to $20? Which curve gets affected? Anything that affects the profitability affects the supply curve. So the supply curve gets affected. Question number one. Which way does it go? Well, if I'm making less profits, the curve should shift to the left. It did. All right. And what happens then to price and quantity? The third question I want to ask. Well, here was my original equilibrium. Here's my new one. What happened? Well, price has gone up of my products, and people are buying less of them. Okay? So minimum wage, yeah, you'd expect the prices to go up, and you'd expect, because the prices are going up, people to buy less. Notice, because people buy less doesn't mean that the demand curve changed. People are still willing to buy more at this price. I moved along the demand curve. And that's a trick that happens too also when you look at the demand curve. People will say, oh, look, people will say, look, how come I can't get there? People will say, oh, look, the demand curve, it's moving, so I'm going to make less, so that'll affect the supply curve. No, take it one step at a time. Yes, I will make less, but I just shifted down here on the curve. I'm still willing to make it, but people aren't willing to buy it. So be careful. Take it in those 3 steps. All right, so we talked about these. What happens to corporate taxes, consumer tax? You should be able to understand and think about what happens to changes in the different curves and price and quantity as a result of these actions. Another way to kind of tackle these problems is to think about something very simple. Like think about a lemonade stand. If you can understand the effect on price and quantity and supply and demand from these sorts of things for a lemonade stand, you can apply it to the healthcare industry, you can apply it to oil, you can apply it to clothing, you can apply it to anything. It works whether it's a lemonade stand or whether it's a large global conglomerate.